Hello, this is Don Larson again. We are ready to get started with our webinar. So today, the agenda for our webinar is going to be, I'm first going to go through our standard housekeeping rules for the webinar. And then I'll give you a quick company overview for those who are not familiar with Larson software. And then we're going to give a quick report on the S1000D user forum that happened last year, and then also cover what's happening in the graphics working group in S1000D. We'll give y'all some background that'll be helpful for this webinar, we think, on CGM and SVG. We'll touch on the aspects of conversion and display, and then drill down a little bit on some of the technical requirements, technical aspects of CGM and SVG. And then we've got a little technology demo to show you some of these tools in action. And then we'll wrap up with a summary and a Q&A. Housekeeping rules for this webinar. If you should experience any standards, use your little chat box or the questions to post to let us know, give us some feedback. And then all attendees will be muted for the duration of the webinar. The computer audio is the recommended option, but we also post a call-in number. And then I wanted to call your attention to some little handouts that you can find in the webinar control panel. You can just invite you to drag and drop that, some information on some of our product information on CGM SVG products. And then please post your questions as they come up while we're doing the webinar, so we can, and then we'll address those at the end of the session. And if they get too detailed or we can't get it all, we'll be sure and follow up with an email. Background on Larson Software. We're based in Houston, Texas. We're actually founded in 1984 as graphics technology experts. We develop powerful, innovative graphic software, end user software, and toolkits based on open graphic standards. We initially promoted the CGM usage by a free CGM viewer, which we've now replaced with a subscription version that you could get on our online store. We were the developer of the first HTML5 CGM viewer, which eliminated the need for plugins and a big step forward in viewing CGM. We're a member of the CGM Open Foundation that provides some governance and control of the CGM standard. Larson, in general, our Larson technology products simplify the graphics workflow for technical writers, illustrators, and technical publication professionals. So with that intro and background information, I'm going to turn it over to David for the main part of our webinar today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Don, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. This is kind of our annual event where we talk about the CGM and SVG, really the two 2D formats that are relevant to our industry. So some of the drivers that I'd just like to kind of outline why we're doing it. So one of them is SVG is very kind of topical, and perhaps some people might think it's going to replace CGM within the industry, say for S1000D. So does that mean that CGM is still relevant? And should we switch really to one 2D graphic archive, be it CGM or SVG? What is Tech SVG? This is something we developed, and we'll talk about that. What are the S1000D community doing with SVG? What are the pitfalls perhaps of using it now? And some of the technical requirements. What software are you going to use to generate CGM and SVGs, and probably display them as well? And we'll probably end just by communicating and probably showing, what our strategy is going forward for both formats. So last year, probably some of you did attend the event. There was a mistake on the agenda. Apologies, Don. It should have been 2022. But last year, we had the first S1000D user forum since really the pandemic. And it was a joint event with the ATA e-business forum. So that really means it was both kind of defense, aerospace, everybody you can think of really interested in the spec attended. It was very well attended. It was in Seattle, USA. And the hotel was actually, it has no kind of real relevance, but it was located right next to the Boeing plant in Seattle. We did exhibit, and we also spoke. We had a speaking slot, but we mainly focused at that time on 3D graphics. That's something we've been developing as well. Products around delivering and creating 3D as well. So the event was very well attended. In fact, it sold out. And what we discovered really was there's a big interest in both 2D, mainly SVG, and 3D file formats creating and displaying. And the interest in 3D also came from actually other vendors who were exhibiting as well, because obviously there seems to be a bit of a push to deliver this type of data. So what is the Graphics and Multimedia Working Group? It is a part of S1000D community, and it's kind of been this particular part of the spec has kind of not been frozen, but it's not really been working, mainly because CGM was very kind of widely used, and but since really for a few years now, SVG has become more important, and it's been on the agenda of the Graphics and Multimedia Working Group to actually put SVG into the spec. And last year, the working group was restarted, and the main objective of that was to actually look at 2D SVG, 2D file format, and probably 3D in the future as well. And so the first task really was to kind of formalize the SVG file format in the S1000D specification. And that work has begun. Larson has participated in that group. We contribute ideas, and really because we have already kind of proven techniques for working with the file format. Just a historical point that actually Don was part of the team that worked on the CGM S1000D profile many years ago. So we're kind of revisiting that the spec now when SVG looks like it's going to be, well, it's definitely been submitted. A white paper has gone for review, and that's currently happening at the moment. There's the review has gone to the committee, and they will feedback. I think it's in early April, so next month. It's not too far away. So the objective really will be to get the SVG documented and the profile created for issue 6 of the specification. So what will that do? That will provide SVG guidelines for the use of it in publications. It will create a profile, which probably is the most important thing, detailing elements and attributes that will be permitted in SVG files. And this will hopefully result in an improved interoperability of those files. The profile could also provide the opportunity for validation of the file. So in conclusion, it really is the goal is to provide end users and software vendors, a seamless way of data creation, management, and distribution. So the aim is to mirror really what we have currently in CGM. So historically, CGM has predominantly been the format of S1000D and other industries as well, and mainly because it's open. It's not It's not proprietary to any particular organization. And it's really good at delivering vector graphics. There was a web CGM profile developed, which now the S1000D uses as their standard profile, really for delivering vector graphics on the web. You can still visit cgmopen.org to get more information. SVG is a bit different. It's not as kind of focused on a particular industry. It was really developed to deliver high quality vector graphics for the web. It has been adopted by certain industries, which I'll outline later on, but historically it was developed from other languages and finished up actually as an XML format, which is really a good kind of thing for S1000D, as the data module actually based on that standard as well. So it's kind of a natural fit. So what do they have in common? Quite a lot, to be honest. They're both open, both accredited with the W3C. I think they're both suitable for creation and maintenance of technical illustrations for revision of them. The only graphical formats really that can contain both vector and raster information. Perhaps that requirement is going away a bit. Certainly the inclusion of raster, but there could be legacy that you still need both formats in one file to be able to maintain them and edit them. So that's a good thing for both formats. They have the potential, as I mentioned earlier on, to be validated. And both can contain metadata. So that means they can be interactive graphics, so hotspots. And in the case of SVG, it has a few more things for animation, and it can also be a data-driven format as well, say from a spreadsheet. So the advantages of SVG really is for display purposes, and this is one of the reasons it's been really widely adopted, even without a profile, is the fact that it can, it's native to HTML5. So you don't need any kind of plugin to display the file in a web browser. And the same now applies to CGM. We developed some time ago a technology called VisXView HTML5, which allows you to view CGM files in a web browser without a plugin. And we'll talk about these two things in more depth later. So a bit of background on CGM. As I said, it's been around for a long time. I think what people get the impression is, because it's been around since the 1980s, is that it is old, but it's still relevant. So I don't think it's any reason to throw all your files away or anything like that, because it is open, it's interoperable, and it's still widely used. A lot of illustrations within organizations still exist, a lot of legacy, so it's going to be maintained for some time. So there's no reason to throw these files away or think that they can't do certain things. And as I said, it's mainly used really with aerospace and defense. It is used, again, in the automotive industry as well. It was a standard there and is still used. And oil and gas, probably not as much as it used to be. They've gone over to other means of displaying data, but it certainly was a standard at one time within oil and gas, and it still is for many companies who use our viewers and so forth to view CGM files. So with SVG, the background is slightly different. As I say, it comes probably more from a mass kind of market. Kind of what it needs to do is display vector graphics on the web. So they developed this format primarily to get high quality graphics on the web, as opposed to kind of PNG and JPEG, which are good, but they have limitations because they're actually image based, pixel based. So this was developed alongside various vendors such as Microsoft and Adobe, and that's why I said it was more kind of mass market driven. You know, Adobe actually widely adopted it with their software at the beginning, and then perhaps dropped off a bit as it didn't get the adoption perhaps they wanted it to. But for us in our industry, it's perfect as a mirror of CGM. It has a lot of the same features as I mentioned earlier. And that key one is there at the bottom is the support in the web browsers with no plugin technology. So that you don't need an ActiveX control anymore to view a graphic. So it's pretty seamless. The only issue is the spec is really, really large, and it contains a lot of attributes and elements that we don't really require for technical illustrations. And that is really the difficulty in actually creating SVG files, because you can get one, say, from Illustrator, Corel, or Inkscape, and they will be completely different from each piece of software. So that's really difficult from an interoperability point of view, and also displaying them, so it can really cause issues. So this is why we really need some kind of standardization in our industry to support SVG. So I mentioned it, there is a benefit, obviously benefits that it's open. It could be validated by a schema. But it was never really designed for data exchange. And that's one of the issues. It really was designed to display vector graphics on the web. And this is where the opportunity comes for us to create a profile that will standardize files and make them easier to actually work with. So where is SVG used? Well, it's certainly used now within aerospace and defense. A lot of vendors and a lot of end users are using it to display their graphics in, say, an IETM, an interactive electronic technical manual. It's also widely used in geographic information systems as their choice for displaying maps on the web. To my knowledge, Google still don't use SVG, they're using images. But certainly it is widely used within the kind of cartography industry. Graphic arts, I still think predominantly we see raster images on the web, and the quality being good, but really the interactivity is really going to be an issue if you're using images. You're going to have some kind of overlay, and that's why SVG or CGM is a much better choice if you have an interactive graphic. And it's also, SVG is used for kind of data visualization, things like dashboards and so forth, where you need some kind of way of attaching to a database or a spreadsheet to drive the graphic output. So you might see a chart change based on a spreadsheet. And again, this is where SVG is useful. So so the file formats themselves, where are we? So at the moment, CGM is still the only one really documented. So I would kind of recommend you would still be using it. So you don't, if you use our VisXView HTML5 technology, you can still use CGM and display it on the web. So you wouldn't need to convert it in any way. If you did want to convert and you wanted to use SVG, then you still need a standard way of doing that. And we have all our software now as a standard way of writing out a CGM file. So if you want to do a batch conversion of files, we have a CGM to vector product that will convert all your CGM, say, to SVG. But at the moment, I would still recommend that you retain your CGM as your original and an SVG for display, perhaps. And that's really only till we get the profile, and then in theory you could actually use SVG as your archive. So as we know, S1000D has a comprehensive section on CGM that was written some years ago, and there's still no guidance around SVG, but if all goes well, we should see in issue 6 a similar kind of chapter that we have for CGM for SVG. and that's with the S1000D spec. ATA, also, they were using CGM. So this is the aerospace, or it's now Airlines for America organization, standardized on CGM. They haven't really come out and said what they're going to use, but they do now use the S1000D spec themselves. So anything kind of new aircraft will be using probably S1000D in the future. So again, it could be they could use SVG as well. So we from our experiences so far, we had, certainly at the beginning, we had a lot of issues with the file format of SVG coming in from different pieces of software. So we created what we called a tech SVG profile, and we made that publicly available to show what we do when we export the file out and what elements and attributes we use. The primary conversion scenario really was CGM exported to SVG, and as the main driver for that was customers wanted to display SVG graphics in a web environment without a plugin. And I think at the moment what we see happening is that our profile that we developed, once the SVG profile is released, we will obviously update, and probably that will go away, and we'll just support the SVG one in the future. I think they will be pretty close to each other, so there won't be a lot of work to do on our side to support it, and we will support it in the future. So just some technical things on the SVG, how we support it with Tech SVG, is you can see just from the graphic on the right that this full spec is very large. It contains a lot of things that really are not relevant to technical illustrations. And even the tiny version, which was developed really for mobile use on a mobile device such as a phone, is probably too big or contained elements that weren't really relevant. So what we did is we developed our own profile, which was a subset of both, which we felt was the best fit for our industry. And I think, as I said earlier, I think the profile that S1000D comes up with will be pretty close to this as well. So it's a lot lighter, and it really does everything we need, such as things like hotspots and so forth. So as I've mentioned at the beginning, we can still actually display CGM using our plugin, using our Visit View HTML5 technology, but SVG does not require that. The only downside is you can double click on an SVG and you can display it within a web browser very easily. But the downside is you have no real environment then to say put it as part of an IETM. So there's still work to do to display it. So you would need to create kind of a toolbar, an environment to link with the text, with the data module. So there is still work to do on that side. And we kind of taken that away with the Visit View HTML5 technology. So I think the primary thing is with any file that's going into an interactive manual is how do you hotspot the file? And as I mentioned at the beginning, with the CGM, there's a clearly defined way of doing that within the spec. And we obviously support that within our software. When you write out a CGM, it does it in the way that the spec wants us to. And that helps us with interoperability and also with display in various viewers. So this is what I'll show you this dialog box live in a second, the demo. But there's certain attributes that need to go into the file in a certain way, and then it's written out into the CGM file. So then we can connect the XML, the data module to it, and then it works within the browser as well. And this is all clearly defined. Within SVG, there was no definition. So So we've written our own. We wrote the Tech SVG profile to give a standard way of defining that. I'm not saying the S1000D SVG profile will be the same, but we will also obviously adopt that if they decide to come up with their own nomenclature of that, or the naming of that file. So when we display a CGM, it's quite straightforward because we have the tools to do it, and we also have the standard to back that up. With SVG, it could be that we don't the data is not recognized in a certain viewer because we might write it a different way to that other viewer writes it. But we work with customers on that at the moment. But it would be much easier if there was a clearly defined way of creating a hotspot in, say, SVG, and that's what we did with our Tech SVG profile. So I'll show you a few demos rather than just keep talking, and hopefully that will give you an insight into what we've been doing and where we're going in the future. So with VisX Edit, this is our technical illustration software. It can import and export CGM files and SVG files. As I said, it uses the developed profile at the moment for the export of SVG. With CGM, it's fully compliant with S1000D and ATA. We have the ability to add hotspots manually or automatically, and you can then export as CGM or SVG, and the hotspots are preserved. So you could use either format. And then obviously we would, if it was CGM, we'd use VisX View HTML5 to view the CGM in a web environment. If it's SVG, it'd be your browser. So I'm quickly going to go to the demo. So this is VisX Edit. I thought I'd use the bike as an example, mainly because if you're using S1000D, this was what you'll be familiar with. It doesn't look like a technical illustration where I might be familiar with for an illustrated parts data, but I think it does the job here, and you can relate to it, and you know how this is hotspotted. So if I want to display the hotspots here in VisX Edit, you can see that I've highlighted them all now. So these are all from the bike sample that you can download from s1000d.org. So it's just a standard bike sample that's been hotspotted. On the left-hand side, you can see a tree view of the hotspot. So if I say click on 7, let's see. So at the bottom here, it's highlighted it. Number 4. Down here at the bottom, it's highlighted it. So there's we're already kind of interacting here between the two. And say number 5 here, I've added a few different attributes to it. So we have the ID itself, which is used in the linking in the XML. Also the name is as well. So this is important because this is contained within the file, and we need a similar thing within SVG. It's got a screen tip, and here I've added an actual hyperlink to that as well. So you could go somewhere else. It might link to another graphic somewhere else. So we have the ability within VisX Edit to add to these others as well, screen tips and so forth, if we wanted to. We could then save that as a CGM. But in this case, I'm going to save it as to the desktop as an SVG. So that should be done. And I'm going to double click on it. Microsoft wants me to make my browser of choice. I don't want to do that at the moment. Okay, so again, we've got the hotspots. So this is the file I've just exported. So you can see that in the SVG, it is SVG that the hotspots have worked. They've come through into the browser. And number 5 has a tooltip, and the link was to our website. So everything I created in there, I would have the same effect if I did the CGM file as well. So now we have the opportunity from Visitx Edit to create either the CGM or SVG, or both. Okay, so that's a really brief look at Visitx Edit. We can also add hotspots to graphics that do not have them. We could add them manually. We can just create a hotspot manually, or in Visitx Edit Plus, we can create automatic hotspots. So say this wasn't hotspotted, then I could just auto hotspot this very easily because these are all text and numbers. So we could easily hotspot this illustration and the tree view would be populated. Okay, that's a brief demo. So two, really, Visitx Edit and Visitx Edit Plus does the auto hotspotting. We also do batch conversion as well. So if you wanted to convert multiple graphics from CGM to SVG, then we have Visitx Transform, which is kind of our flagship converter, which will do auto hotspotting and batch conversion at the same time. And that we have CGM to vector, which really just converts the CGM to SVG. It doesn't do any auto hotspotting. So we have customers who do both, but certainly if you wanted to hotspot, hundreds, thousands of files, then Visitx Transform will do that in a batch mode for you. We also have SDKs, or software development kits, for CGM to vector. This would allow you to actually integrate this within, if you were a software vendor, you could actually integrate this software into your solution to do on the fly CGM to vector conversions, if it's part of, say, a CSDB, or you could just build it into your software to do that manually as well for your users. And Visitx View HTML5, I spoke about that earlier, really is our viewing technology to view CGMs in a web browser without a plugin. And we have many users who are using that technology as well. So I think we'll just go to a quick demo of Visitx View HTML5. So this is our evaluation page for Visitx View HTML5. It's open to anybody who wants to try it out. Just a caveat that it is a developer tool, so it's not really aimed at an end user, although an end user could look around and use it, but it's fully documented. It has an API for calls, different events that the technology can use. So, and there are lots of examples here for you to evaluate and look how they're actually achieved. Okay, so this example here, I didn't really talk about too much about companion files in this presentation, but basically this has been hotspotted. We have tooltips on here. So this is a CGM file. We can customize this toolbox. So in Visitx View HTML5, you have that ability to keep using your CGMs, and there's no plugin required at this point. And we also support the companion file of CGM, which is again in the spec itself. So this allows us, in this case, kind of to switch out languages on the fly using the companion file. So the companion file is XML. So it kind of is a bit data driven. Speaking about SVG, here with the data driver is this companion file, which is documented within the specification. So it could be, I know some people that use this, especially in aerospace, commercial aerospace, use the companion file. So you can see it's updating the language in this case because it's accessing the XML data. The other thing I spoke about was hotspots. So here we have like a table. If I move over the table, sorry, the actual call out, it will show me on the table where it is. So we have that interactivity between the two. So we have the CGM file here, and we have our table, which could be XML here. So you can have that interactivity in CGM between the two very easily. And obviously we can zoom in on the file, we can pan around and so forth. So all the things you would expect for a viewer. So we're providing kind of the toolbox and the ability to link between the text and graphics here. And this is what I was saying perhaps was missing with SVG is I can, as you saw earlier, I could double click on the SVG, open it, but what else am I going to do with it other than just hover over the hotspots? I need some kind of way of interacting with it. So that's VisX View HTML5. So today, this is brand new. We have not shown this to anybody before today. And we're calling it VisX View SVG. It's a new SDK. And as I mentioned earlier, there's no real way off the shelf or as a development kit of viewing SVGs where you have a toolbox and so forth. So today we're introducing this as a new technology for Larson. So you said, why create a viewer for SVG when it's native to HTML5? So there's no real easy way of interacting with the graphic with say zooming in, zooming out, and so forth, or clicking on hotspots and they link to a table and so forth. There's no real easy way of doing that other than you developing that technology. So what we see is VisX View SVG actually enabling us now or you to do that in something that can be supported at the moment using Tech SVG profile, but in the future the S1000D profile. So let me just show you a quick demo. Very much like VisX View HTML5, we have an evaluation page which is now live, and it's not got as many examples at the moment, but it's fully documented with an API as HTML5 is, and we have options or examples of a file viewer, and also let's just show you what we have. So in here we've created an example of the bike with a table, which is an external XML file, and as we hover over this, you can see as before with VisX View HTML5, when we move over this, it actually highlights the table, and vice versa. As we go across here, it gives us the feedback in the other direction as well. It would support tooltips. I don't think we've got anything on here at the moment. And here's the toolbar, which is fully customizable. So if you want to put your own icons in here, you can do. We can zoom in, we can pan, we can print. So now you have an environment that's kind of more, I don't want to say off the shelf because it's a developer kit, but it gives you the tools really now to integrate SVG into your IETM very easily. Yeah, so this is just the other example of our kind of, you could just actually try this out on the evaluation page. Using the scroll bar, you can move in and out, and we give you option here to open a file. So you could open a file up and try it out if you have SVGs you want to test. Or we could open a local file here. I could say I could open one that off the desktop, but it's going to look exactly the same, I think. So that might not be although it's saying that it's open, and this is actually should have the tooltip on it, I think. Yeah, so there's the tooltip. So that's the one I created earlier on. So yeah, we're really pleased to introduce this today, to launch it today, and like I say, we have the site is live. So let me just go back to the slides. Don't panic. We'll send these slides out with the link, but that is the link. So it's just our normal website address with VisXView SVG tests, and that does take you to a login page. Very quickly you can log in, and there's no time limit on your evaluation. So you can really just log in anytime you like and try it out. So back to where we started, really with the presentation. This year's S1000 user forum is actually coming up this year. It's in Florida, September 11th to 15th. I don't believe you can register yet, but it's certainly something to put in your calendar. We'll be there exhibiting as we were at the last one. Hopefully there'll be some more news, actually official news, circulated by the community at that event. I think probably the graphics working group will do a presentation where they're up to. I'm not clear on issue 6 when that will be released, but I'm pretty sure we'll find out at that particular event. So if you come, please come and see us. We'll be there. So in summary, I think we're making some significant progress with SVG now, and also we're still working through 3D, and I think that will be the next thing that the working group will look at. It might even start before the SVG is complete, because there will be lulls while they're waiting for reviews. So, but all I can say is at the moment they're very interested in trying to define something for 3D as well. So I think that's important that we as a community do that. I think it's also important that the committee is now going again, or the community is now going, or the working group is now going again for graphics. I think it's been obviously not being very kind of moving forward, I suppose is the best word, for some time, and now it is. We've got a good group of people who are looking at the standard. Obviously, we launched that new thing today for VisXView SVG. I think it's topical. Its customers has been asking us about it, if we were going to develop in that area, and today we've launched that. So, in conclusion, we're really happy to work with you with your company or organization on CGM and SVG, and kind of give you our experiences and obviously products. Okay. So if there's any questions, quite happy to answer them. I know we've gone through a lot of information, and it can be kind of a bit daunting, and probably answered all my questions myself, possibly. But it'd be really good if you have anything, just please ask them now, or you can email me or Don following the presentation. So I'll call back Don up at this point. He's been monitoring the presentation. So, question?
Yes, I'm here, and we do have one question that's been posted.
Okay. Will the specification define support compressed SVGs? I believe it will do. It does address compression of SVGs, yes. But what it's going to say, I don't know at the moment, or I can't divulge that. But it certainly is aware of compressed SVGs, and it will be defined within the spec. So the next question is quite a long one. Don, have you read that one?
Oh yeah, not yet.
Yeah, this is more a thank you for the question. Is actually a user, and yeah, this is more of a functionality for VisX Edit, and all I can say is we have been asked about this, and it's something we're looking at to put into the software, and it's kind of an auto fill function. It doesn't really have any bearing on SVG and CGM or export of those formats, but it's a really good function, and we're definitely looking at that. So another question just come in. So Don, perhaps you want to take that one. CGM to SVG batch conversion tool, does it preserve the ID and the layer names?
Yes, it does. It does it in a, and it does it according to the Tech SVG profile. And again, that points out a need for a standard way to do it, because there's not a standard way in SVG, but we provide a standard way to do it. And yes, we do support it, like in our editor and our conversion tool. So yes, it does preserve all that.
Good, yeah, and really, this is why we kind of got ahead of the game, is because we had customers who were already using SVG without the inclusion in the spec. So we kind of got ahead of it, and we're kind of still ahead of it because we've now launched our SVG viewing technology. But you can be assured we will obviously comply to the specification as we do with everything else when it's actually been defined. So, and as being part of the working group, we obviously know what that's going to look like ahead of time. So, it really shows our commitment to the industry, to the formats which we've always had. As I said, dating back to Don working on CGM all those years ago. So we're still here, and we're still very interested in trying to provide the best tools for our customers. Okay, so I think that's it. Thank you for the questions, everybody. As I said, if you have anything else that you want to bring up following the presentation, then please do. You can always email me or Don. We will be putting the slides up so you can download them. And if you have anybody who wants to, send there will be a link to the recording on YouTube. So, please forward that to anybody who might be interested. And it will be our next webinar. I haven't got a date for it yet. I haven't got a topic yet, but you will be informed of our next webinar when we've decided on that. Okay, we might have another question. Sorry. Okay, I think that we might have to take that one offline. So again, thank you for attending today. Hope you enjoyed the event, and obviously you can watch the recording if you need to go back over anything that you may have missed. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day. Thank you.